Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and excited to be here with you today on this wonderful Wednesday. We got our guy Bill Bender, who's usually on Tuesdays. He's going to be with us on today. Excited to have him on, talk a little bit about college football, what's going on, and all the happenings that we get across from the country. And really, I'm excited to kind of hear about his thoughts on some of the things that are going on with NIL and the enforcement arm. And you got to keep in mind, folks, we're 3 years into this NIL experiment now. I believe 3. I think 2021 was kind of the first iteration of that. And we've seen it grow. We saw the formation of collectives. Now they're trying to do away with the collectives, but there's so much here to be able to work with. And the schools were going to have control. And then there was a reason why they couldn't, because when it's pulled under, then it's under the umbrella of the university. There's just so much here, and there's so much minutia around everything that's going on, and the details are tough to kind of get pinned down and to figure out. So it's not the easiest thing in the world, but I think that we're starting to get enough guidance around it. Now, the Supreme Court's made a couple rulings about how you can't restrict guys' ability to move, and you can't restrict the earnings of people. But then there's also the Title IX components. And it feels like college football now, and really college athletics, is finally starting to get a little bit of a hold on this thing. And I'm not really certain how it's going to look. I think there'll be a couple iterations of this as people try to figure out exactly what the rules are, how they can be governed, and what that governance is going to look like. But I think there is going to start to be some more guidance, because right now the problem is there's no enforcement. There's 2 portal windows, as we've talked about. It went after the season, which is a fluid portal because it opens up for guys when their coaches leave. You have the main portal, then you have one that opens when coaches leave, and then you have another one that rolls for the guys who are still in games and playing, but they can't get in, or they can get in, but they can't go to their new school until after they're done. And so this creates this big log jam, and the portal just seems to drift on forever. So there's a lot of issues that ultimately come with that. And then the enforceability of the payments with the collective. What do those contracts look like? No one really knows. Right now, it's really replicating more of a pay-for-play model than an actual NIL, name, image, and likeness, where you're getting compensated for your ability to market products or your marketability with a school. And so there's a lot of different things that they're trying to piece out. Like, how do you enforce all this? What do you do? And right now, the NCAA has thrown their hands up and said, hey, we're waiting for Congress. Well, you know what, guys? You'll be waiting for Congress until I'm in the ground. Now, maybe that's sooner rather than later, but it's going to be a while. But coaches are clamoring for something to be done. And I think this was what had to happen a little bit, because there's always people that are going to try to skirt and circumvent the rules that, hey, if we can pay guys, boom, let's just go try to round up as much money as possible. Some of it will be true NIL. Some of it's going to be pay for play. But you know what? We're going to offer these guys, $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, maybe even more coming out of high school. Is that healthy for the player? Probably not. Is that healthy for the school? Probably not. As far as the individual, what is the clawback on that? What if they're not good players? You get into a multi-year commitment with a guy and the player can walk, but does the school have that same option to terminate the contract? Like, these are all things that we're sitting in here. And so finally got to the point, I think, where the coaches now have gotten there and said, hey, because what you need is have all the schools sign on board, where there can be some structured rules that are put into place. And with the revenue sharing agreement, with the House settlement that I believe I saw in Ross Stellinger's article, because he did a great job, will come down April 7th. But he talked to Brian Kelly about this, and all the coaches will have to agree to it, but they'll have the revenue sharing, and so you'll be able to share with the players. And then anything above and beyond that is going to have a litmus test of whether or not it's actually true NIL, or is it just a little lanyard, to quote an area of where Brian Kelly's from, down there in the boot. They call that a little extra. I steal that from my guy, Jacob Hester. So a little lanyard. And so with that, you have to have agreed upon rules, and you have to have agreed upon enforcement process, and then you have to have agreed upon penalties. Now, everyone right now, like the NCAA comes knocking at the door, no answer. They don't answer. Why? Because the NCAA has been emasculated. They've been castrated. They have no teeth. They have no ability to enforce anything because people just take them to court, and they've got a million lawsuits going on. They make all this money, but right now they're spending it all on lawsuits. So you have to have something that is enforceable, be enforceable in a timely manner, and see something that everybody, I think, can universally and collectively agree on. And so it had to get to the point where you were at the basement. You were at 0 dark 30. I mean, this was go time. Everybody got to the point where you could not stand it anymore. And this is where Brian Kelly comes in here and he says, they need some real enforcement, not just a slap on the wrist. And so what they're doing, quote Brian Kelly when he talked to Ross Dellinger, he said it'll be across the board consistent among the power conferences, enforcement with severe sanctions. They will be quick, they will be swift, and everybody's going to be on board with that. And so that's the thing. You can't have these investigations dragging on for years where guys are getting punished who the school, they had nothing to do with it. These guys are all off in the NFL. The coaches have left, whatever. And so you have to have things that are going to be swift, that'll be fair, that everybody can agree upon. And now I think you're going to get a lot more of agreement because the SEC probably for a long time didn't like this or want to agree to it. But now the fact they've lost two national championships in a row, you had 2 teams from the North with Notre Dame and Ohio State playing for the national championship. The year before that, you had Michigan and Washington. And so 4 teams, the top 4 the last 2 years, I mean, those are it. Texas kind of drifting around. Georgia got in there, but this was not your traditional SEC powers. And so I think that they're more willing to come to the bargaining table now and try to figure this out. But what he's saying is, this is what they're outlining, and Ross Dellinger talks about this. The new power conference-led enforcement entity will be an LLC with a yet-determined named CEO. It's poised to implement significant penalties for those violating a variety of revenue-sharing rules, including a restriction on the number of transfers a program can add, millions in financial fines, a reduction in the team's rev share pool, and multi-game suspensions for coaches. Now, those, it goes on to say, are only ideas or concepts, but they were shared with the coaches and ADs last week in New Orleans as the power conference all got together and tried to figure this out. I guess February 6th is when they first started talking about this separate independent entity, which is something that's you need to have, because the NCAA, I mean, they're governing everything from basketball to badminton, from Division I to NAIA, and in Division III, the multiple tiers of Division I, the power conference within the FBS, and then the group of 5. Like, there's so many different shareholders in this that all have different resources and different reasons for existing, and they're not all in alignment with their missions and what they're trying to do. Some provide interscholastic athletics. Others, it's a revenue-generating business for the few of them. But the ones that are the few, it's big business. And it's different. And so the landmark house settlement agreement, schools are going to be permitted to share up to $20.5 million in revenue with athletes under a cap system. Guess it can have built-in escalators as far as the revenue and where it goes. It's expected to begin July 1st if the settlement is approved this spring. I guess the final hearing, like I mentioned earlier, is April 7th. And they said how this is going to be policed. That's the big question. Brian Kelly wanted to say suspensions are going to be on the table, fines. It's not going to be a slap on the wrist. That was made very clear. And I think everybody's on board with this because everybody's sick. You hear the coaches, everybody's getting poached. And they start poaching from other people because, we've got these deals. Hey, get a hold of their high school coach, and the coaches will never admit to this. They've got different people in syndicates so they can talk to these players, people they've recruited. Hey, is such and such happy? He looked pretty good in the spring to us. We think we could probably have a spot for him. We're a little light at that position. Hey, how about we offer him $250,000? Can he come in here and play for us? And so they've got to figure out that solution. But the biggest thing, these penalties, they've got to be punitive, and they have to be swift. And so that's why the fines, I think, are going to be big. The reduction, essentially, of the revenue sharing. So they'll be reducing what, in essence, would be part of your salary cap that you could spend on players. So that will be heavily punitive. Talked about fines, and then limiting the number of transfers you could bring in. And so you would then be more or less stuck with maybe some of your roster and everything that you've got going there. And so all of these things, as you push them together, this is all stuff that whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Penn State, Michigan, Bama, Georgia, USC, Oregon, Texas, like everybody, I think, is going to be on board with this because coaches are sick of after the season having to get done with their season and then immediately dive on and figure out what they're trying to do with their own roster and trying to maintain their players. And so you get some of these multi-year deals in there that'll help handle some of the places and handle some of the issues that they have. And what was interesting, it said some of the athletic directors and coaches, like from the Power 4, Power 5, work on establishing some of these new rules, and with things such as those who have found to exceed the annual revenue share cap, those tampering with players currently under contract at other schools, and circumventing the cap by using boosters to compensate athletes. And so what they're going to do with this is they're going to create this independent fund, and what's the litmus test for actual NIL? How do they figure that out? Where you have at Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, who's by all accounts one of the best players in college football and the best receiver in college football. Hey, I am Kroger, Giant Eagle, Carpenter Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electric. Maybe we do. I don't know if we've got that kind of steam. Probably not enough there. Nationwide show. Maybe have nationwide insurance. Anything. They say, hey, we want to bring Jeremiah Smith in. We want to do this type of deal. You're going to have to then submit that. It's going to be done by an independent agency outside of the framework of what's going on and with college football and college basketball. It's going to be done. It's going to be done by Deloitte, an accounting and consulting firm, and they'll be the ones that pass the litmus test. And I guess they have these different elements in there to make it expedited and to make it quick. Where some of the rumors like 45 days, because if you have this, you can't have these things drawn out for 6 months. Company wants to do a deal, player wants to do the deal. It's going to be for X amount of dollars for the X level of commitment. You submit it. You can't be waiting 4 months for it. So they said hopefully within 45 days, they'll figure out a compensation of what it should be. And maybe if they say it's too high, you have to reduce it. Great for the company. They won't have to pay as much. Player will get a little bit less, but they're going to have a clearinghouse that suggests fair market values and how that's ultimately going to work for, different things, commercials, local stuff. It is. And I guess you can appeal it to the CEO. And if the deals are ultimately rejected and they don't find a workaround and they're not able to come to another agreement with that, well, then you're going to have an issue. And ultimately then if the player decides to play, they'll be deemed ineligible and those games won't count. And that's going to all impact the CFP. There's still some stuff that they've got to figure out with Title IX, how that's going to be worked on. Now, this is stuff with the revenue sharing is essentially revenue sharing of revenue that is brought in. And so I don't know if that's going to apply to Title IX. The Supreme Court is trying to figure this out, but you're not going to get congressional legislation. But it seems like we're moving in the right direction. And I know this. We'll never have any progress unless they put something down to paper. And then everybody's going to punch holes in it, and we're going to figure out what doesn't work, and then we're going to modify it, and we're going to keep moving. Problem was they dumped on this all at once, and NIL, transfer portal, all these things, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, you're trying to manage all this at one time instead of rolling them out incrementally, which would have been the smart and prudent choice. But it seems like something is in the works of getting done. And so Schleiks is going to join us here at some point in time. He's running around like a crazy man. But I know that we're shooting this. We're going to have Bill Bender joining us. He's going to talk a little bit about this. We'll talk about some other of the stories in college football and college athletics and some of the draft stuff and everything else. We'll have that all coming up for you here next. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Export. Attention parents and athletes, protect what matters most with Export mouth guards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by an NHL team dentist. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including patented use of carbon fiber, custom fit to your own unique smile with 3D printing technology. That means more protection, better performance, max comfort, clearer communication. That way you focus on your game, folks, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby to save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. Bill Bender, the sporting news coming up. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool and doesn't taste like ass. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink garage beer. It's American and so can you. Garage beer, beer flavored beer. Now we're here with our guy Schlegs, and we're happy to welcome in our guy, Mr. Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill, I know you're catching a little bit of the end of that there. I was talking through some of that Ross Dellinger article where he sat down with Brian Kelly, some of the things that have been leaked out from this, the all conference, all commissioners meeting with some ADs and coaches and different things involved. It seems like it's headed in the right direction. Do you feel that same way, and kind of where do you see this going?
Yeah, the folks that say, college football is dead or it's on fire, it's taken a blown torch to it. Yeah, that kind of happened because it's a different college football than we grew up with. It's not 1994 anymore, which that was a fun era of college football. And as we progress through everything now, there's a lot of player empowerment. I think the transfer portal and NIL are starting to level out, that we're moving towards a better way to do name, image, and likeness, and a better way to do the transfer portal. And yes, the sport has been, there's some level of NFLification is what I call it. It feels a lot like the pro game now, but in some ways a good way. I mean, we've talked a lot in the last week, Bobby, about the spring and whether or not it's going to be more like an OTAs than a true spring practice. And I think that's coming next.
And let me ask you this, Bill. So your perfect picture, because I think we're all in agreement. You might disagree, but if in that national championship game, we all thought the eyeballs were going to be roughly, I thought it'd be about around 30 million people. And you know what the NFL got? Like, they got 150 million people. Obviously, the college game is not like that. The NFL is king. Why fight for them? Why scrabble, quabble for the scraps from Longshank's table? Start earlier, go through the playoff, have it your own deal. But what do you think as far as the governing body? Because the NCAA is trash. Well, how does that look to you? What does that look like to a one Richard Bender?
You kind of dropped the Braveheart reference there. I'll do the one of the mob movie references, right? You look at college football. How do you get the five families? If that would be the five families, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, Big 12, ACC, Big 10, SEC, and then the group of five is essentially the fifth one. You've got to get everybody on the same page. We're not playing the same number of conference games. We you have five different commissioners, where I always say the SEC and the Big 10 in particular, they look out for the Big 10 first. That's their job from a TV revenue standpoint. Now, we say, should we have this all-encompassing college football playoff commissioner or college football commissioner? Well, how that person's going to have to get everybody on the same page. Would that work? I think it could, but Roger Goodell doesn't deal with an AFC commissioner and an NFC commissioner. He is in charge. So how would these commissioners handle giving power to somebody that is in charge of everyone? And Schlegs, I have my doubts that that's going to happen.
They talk about handing that power over, and that's all these coaches, Bill. You talk to any of the coaches, all they say is we want oversight. We want to have, some level of enforcement with all this, because that's the problem. Like, you can't enforce any of it. These guys are tampering. But that's the other issue, is trusting somebody to be able to adjudicate this in an arm. Like, Brian Kelly seemed all for it. Do you think the coaches have finally gotten to a point where they'll tell their athletic directors, like, we need this, like, we need to agree to this? Yes, it might not be fair, because everybody right now is like, well, we'll just kind of skirt the rules a little bit and we can always just sue them and the NCAA has no teeth. But if they get to all collectively create the rules of what they think that they should be, do you think that they'll be able to do that and then be able to agree on a way to enforce them? Right.
And that's what we need. I think the SEC and the Big Ten, for all the talks that they have, they should play by the same rules. You heard for years that the SEC does things this way and the Big Ten doesn't. Now that we have NIL, what's happened, it's almost like a reversal when Ohio State's collectives are buttoned up. Michigan's are good. Penn State's are good. Notre Dame's are very good. I hear some of the things coming out of Notre Dame and what they're able to do in this new world. So it's not surprising that these schools with these deep fan bases and rich donors are able to do this. And the SEC part of that is how are they going to look 10 years ago? Remember that speech from Nick Saban about Texas A&M buying the players and all the ramifications from that? I think some of that was geared at, well, we're in a state where our NIL maybe isn't what somewhere like Ohio State is, or definitely isn't what Texas and Texas A&M is. You always hear oil money. To me, Texas and in this environment, Texas and Texas A&M should never be bad.
Yeah, I was going back to the question that I asked you about, like, why would they not all come to the table? How does the TV rights get renegotiated? Because that's really that's where the money is for the NFL. Because I remember that this was years ago, but every NFL team received, let's just say, $250 million. Right now, you got 32. So then is it time to where we tell teams, if we go to this, that it's, hey, shit or get off the pot time? You know what I mean? Because if you don't want to have your collectives button up, if you don't want to have the same facilities that everybody else has, if you don't want to invest in the programs to have a great product, it's time for you to get off the pot, maybe go to 64 and have it that way. And then, boom, you're running those. And then maybe there's another 64. Boom, you're running those. TV deals are less. And the other thing off that, Bill, and I don't even know if I asked you a question on that, but who would be a couple of guys that you think that could get the five families to the table?
Yeah, I mean, Nick Saban's always the name that gets popped up, but I don't know if that's what he wants. He would be a guy that probably is good where he's at in the studio, because he's very good in the studio. I think he's been a great addition to game day. I think it's not an accident to me that two of my favorite analysts on TV are two of the most hyper successful coaches, with Urban and Saban. Both of them are so good, so dynamic in that environment. I mean, there's no question. But those are the guys that know the all-encompassing part of this. And when Urban and Nick Saban talk about some of the problems that college football faces, I tend to listen a little more, because they have a grasp of all these things from the coach's standpoint. So a name in particular, like for me, I think it's somebody that has to be not strictly TV and not strictly football. So can you find a guy in the middle? Like Roger Goodell, I actually think he's a decent NFL commissioner. You can't say the game's thriving. What commissioner of any of these pro sports do you guys say here, man, I really like that Adam Silver? If you're a commissioner, you're going to be hated. So somebody's going to have to, with some thick skin, is going to be the guy that does that.
It's just going to, like you said, going to be interesting to find someone that people will agree on is unbiased, but then also knowledgeable on everything. Because the coaches, I think, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the coaches will want to hear from anybody but a coach. But it's finding a coach with like cross-conference ties that knows enough people everywhere that most people will look at and say, yeah, I mean, we can always pick at it, but at least he's as objective as you're going to get. Right.
And those are those AFCA types. Like a coach that I always knew was really respected in that regard, but he's never taken that role. Is a guy like David Cutcliffe. I've never heard somebody say something bad about David Cutcliffe. And you watched how he coached at Duke, his connections to the Mannings, and whenever you heard him speak about the game, you took that into account. Mac Brown was another guy like that, where he's been in the game. He has strong opinions. He's been a TV analyst. Is that something that Mac would want to do down the line? Probably not. But, he was one of the good guys that I always thought was looking out for the good in the game. And you're going to have find somebody like that would be the commissioner if we ever got to that point. But again, and that's what I think. I do enjoy some of the Big Ten and the SEC getting together, because I think they do know that they're the two conferences that drive the most revenue, drive the most interest, have the largest fan bases, have the best games. And, as they continue to look for, could be some news today about the playoff seeding. I don't know why that meeting would take very long. Let's just do it that way.
And what's going to come out of that meeting, Bill? What are they going to do?
I don't think we're going to have much for 2026, but in terms of they may take a vote and try to get the playoff seeding right for next season. That would be the most immediate change. And then I think would that be the first two, like the first top two teams? Are they going to go to 14? Are they going to stay with 12? Are they going to do the top four, get the first round bye?
What do you
Well,
think?
I think we're going to do the rankings straight off the playoff rankings. So 1 through 12, if Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State are 1, 2, and 4 in the final college football playoff rankings, then they're getting the buys. And I think that would make a ton of sense. I don't think we'll expand teams until at least 2026. And in my opinion, Schlags, is I don't know if they're going to do it, but to me, it's like, if we're going to expand, just skip 14, go to 16. Go to 16, get it over with, because once we expand to 14, people are going to complain that we want to go to 16. Just go to 16, stop there. And I would make a law. If I was the commissioner, I would say, we're not going past 16 ever. 16 is more than enough teams to play a college football playoff with.
All right, the last one here, Bill, because I want to talk a little combine after the break. We address this like independent arm and this independent agency, and maybe some of that is the people that'll be on the CFP committee. There's a lot of former coaches on there. Maybe they'll have an active role on it. Maybe it'll be more of a collective group as opposed to a CEO, with maybe a CEO as the head, and some of the committee making some of these decisions that is comprised a lot of former coaches and maybe some former players as well, and some media folks. But when they do this, and this is something that's talked about, it's just the Power Five. Do you see a delineation then where there's going to be different governance then for the group of the Power Four schools or the top four, and then the group of five maybe won't have it nearly as much oversight, just because they don't have the finances to be able to play in the same way as some of those schools at the top?
And that could happen. Now, I know the group of five still wants a say. And one of the things I said about the last playoff, as you guys know, I'm an Ohio alum. Most group of five, the playoff did change my mind about one thing. I was one of those guys that was, hey, let's do a group of five national championship and have OU play App State and Texas State and whoever. But after seeing, like, going into the fourth quarter, Boise State was only down 10 and kicking a field goal to go down 7. I'm like, I would probably enjoy that more if a MAC school ever got to the college football playoff, even if it was, and especially if they go to 16, you're probably going to be playing somebody really tough. But I would take Ohio University down 10 points to Tennessee or Georgia or whoever going into the fourth quarter as a fan, probably more than I would watch them play App State in a Division II FBS semifinal. And that's something that it definitely changed my mind. But that being said, Bobby, yeah, they'll probably have less power in this new structure.
Yeah, it seems like that. We'll see how all that breaks out. I'm sure it's going to be somewhere to be monitoring. Like I said, that House settlement, the final meeting on that will be April 7th, with it being, I believe, implemented July 1st. So we'll see how that goes. We're going to take a quick break. I want to talk to Bill about the NFL Combine here coming up next. All right, back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. Please remember to like, subscribe, leave your comments, questions for us as well. In that section, we love to kind of answer those in our tailgate talk section, brought to you by Real Truck. NFL Combine going to be this starting here quickly, and it goes on for 5, 6, 7 days with the position groups rolling as they come through. Is this something that you've attended in the past, planning to attend, and kind of what's your favorite part?
So I typically do it off the couch, and this week, as I told you on Morning Juice, I'm going down to Hilton Head on Thursday. So I got out of NFL Combine duty, at least the immediate, to go golfing with a bunch of high school friends that I played football with in high school, and we'll have a fun time, and we'll figure out that we're all in our 40s and not in our 20s the hard way. So I'm looking forward to that. The first day is always really good. The second day is a little tough, much like the NFL Combine, I suppose. But I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. There's some themes that right now, Bobby, it seems like the top prospects, Abdul Carter, Shador Sanders, Cam Moore, they're not even working out. So it'll be an interview process with them. But you always look for some guys that jump out over the next couple of days. I know Ohio State has 15 guys that were invited, and some sleepers that will pop up.
Yeah, I was really surprised that Josh Fryer wasn't invited to this, playing right tackle as well as he did all year. Give us some names of what's out there, some Buckeyes that are kind of on the rise, Bill?
Well, I mean, if you look at our guy, Vinny Iyer's latest mock draft, I believe he has 4 Ohio State guys in the first round. He has Jack Sawyer. He had Josh Simmons, who's coming off an injury. And then he gets into day 2, and it feels a little bit like Michigan last year. I don't know that Ohio State will have a ton of first-round picks. Emeka was another one that he had in the first round as well.
Probably
and I
tight
think,
league.
yeah, so they're going to have a lot of day 2 and day 3 guys. And, they're probably going to make a run at that record. But I think some guys that could pop, I mean, obviously Jack and JT being the edge rushers and why that position is such in demand. So if you go out and ball out, you could push into the high first round, mid to high first round. I know you guys talk to Lathan Ransom a lot. I think he's a very interesting prospect because of his versatility in the secondary. And out of those guys in the Ohio State secondary, he could jump up the board.
But when you watch these quarterbacks, I know last year there were 6 taken in the first round, varying degrees of success in their rookie year. Some with some big success with what they've been able to do in some of their first and second season and just how they're able to jump off the page. I don't love Cam Ward as a prospect. I think Shedeur has a better upside, but just hasn't played as much football. Do you think this could be a year where maybe there's 2, possibly a 3rd or 4th guy sneak in the first round? But I'm worried that I don't know if there's a true franchise quarterback really in this draft.
This is part of the problem with the position right now. You said it. I mean, Cam Ward isn't a slam dunk at number 1 by any chance as a franchise guy. I like Shedeur Sanders the best. I've kind of been consistent with that over the last couple of years because he has a high touchdown to interception ratio, doesn't make a ton of mistakes, stands in the pocket, took a ton of sacks. He's tough, throws the ball down the field well. There's some things that he'll, obviously when you go to a bad team, you're going to have to work some things out. But I like a lot about Shedeur Sanders. After that, when you go there's 15 quarterbacks at the combine. Here's an interesting note. 12 of those 15 guys transferred at least once.
Ooh.
So I don't know. I was kind of feeling that out in our meeting today. I was like, I wonder if NFL GMs care about that. I don't think they do, but I mean, that's if you were in an interview process, I'm sure if you're a guy that's transferred once or twice, they're going to at least ask you about that.
Well, what's interesting about it, Bill, is I think in some elements it makes the evaluation easier because you're seeing guys in different systems do different things. There's probably elements where it makes it harder because you have to try to assimilate a lot of information from a lot of different areas. But the argument always was like, is this guy a system quarterback? Well, if he was better here and good here and he even got better, like there's all kinds of different spots that you could then pull from. And I think that's broadened the evaluation. But then also you get some of these guys, Bill, that are coming in, that are 5th and 6th year guys that have started, 55 games in college, which is also unprecedented.
Yeah. And there'll be a little bit of a 6 degrees of separation with Ohio State in this draft with the quarterbacks, because does Will Howard climb in to day 2 or even somehow late first round with a strong performance? We like size, mobility, high character guy. Quinn Ewers, former Ohio State quarterback, where does he go? I see in a lot of mock drafts say the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know he has a really big arm, but consistency was a thing. And then, of course, Kyle McCord. There's another guy that played at Ohio State, and he could be. So if you imagine Ohio State, I think that's a positive that it on draft day, you're going to have 3 guys that have played in your program that will probably get drafted. Kyle McCord led the nation in passing last year. Yeah. And he has some attributes that could play well. Are any of those guys a franchise quarterback? I don't know. But I could see any and all at least being a guy that plays in the preseason, starting as a backup. And, a couple of years ago, there were 66 guys that started a game in the NFL. So you've got to be ready.
How much do you think the impact of Ohio State playing so deep, winning a national championship, is going to affect those 15 guys? Because probably I would suspect none of them are going to do the on-field workout. They might do drills, but they might not run, right, or lift or whatever, because you have to prepare for some of those things. You know what I'm saying? So how do you think that impact of the Ohio States, the Notre Dames, those guys going in will impact them? Or is it really, hey, you know what, we don't care. It's more the interview process and they're going to have a pro day anyways. So, is it more of just now this is a show as opposed to it's the end all be all that it used to be?
That's a great point. And I would think that NFL scouts and GMs would be smart enough to give players from Notre Dame and Ohio State a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, knowing that the season ended on January 20th. And like you said, you train for certain things like the 40 and the bench press and the cone drills and those kind of things. But you bring up an interesting point. I do think pro days have escalated in importance. Like we were even talking about that this morning at Sporting News, where, okay, so Shador's not going to work out at the combine. Colorado's pro day becomes that much more interesting. Ohio State's pro day is always a star-studded event. I mean, how many NFL coaches are on the sideline, former players? I have covered that a few times, and you're just like, you look around, you're like, man, everybody's here that could possibly be here. So I do think, to your point, those guys that maybe don't show out or maybe don't work out, they'll show more in their pro day for sure.
Well, one guy who showed out is, we had AJ on yesterday, Bill, and talking about his Legends card from EA Sports. We actually stumbled upon this. If you want to throw this up here, Pat, the Bill Bender Legends card with his rankings and power rankings for where he's at. I mean, do you think those numbers are accurate for you?
When I was a junior at Ohio University, I'll send this to you guys on the side. I entered the NFL draft as kind of like a joke, like sports writer enters draft, and I was in the same classes like Michael Vick and Reggie Wayne. I was pretty fast in high school. I'll give myself speed, decent, hands, not so good, strength, okay. But if there's an intangibles, I was always a pretty good locker room guy. I was nice to the underclassmen. And so that's what I would say. So I'll take
great teammate. Where's the great teammate stat over there?
Right. Yeah. The rest of these cards, I mean, AJ's card probably looked a hell of a lot better than mine. I think everything other than speed should probably be in the 60s.
Well, we appreciate.
What's your 225 on the bench press, Bill? Right now, what's your 225 on the bench press?
Probably not.
Everybody wants to.
Yeah, no. But I think I would do okay for a 45-year-old man sports writer in the 40. I would.
There you go.
Okay.
I like that.
I like it. Well, Bill, you're still in great shape. You look lean, so that's number one. So you can get out of the stance. So you got a fighter's chance. We'll have to get that done for you sometime as well. We appreciate you moving around for us a little bit today. Thank you for being here again, and you have a great weekend. We'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, I'll hit them well at Hilton Head. I'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks so much.
Enjoy it. Bill Bender of the Sporting News, as Schlegs calls him, Richard Bender as well. All right, coming up next, we got our headlines. Some Buckeye wide receivers making some news coming up next.
Welcome to Big Play, the fastest growing sports media company in America.
I'm gonna keep it straight with you. The reason you should watch our show is because I look good, baby.
Come get some!
Join our millions of fans for live sports talk shows hosted by the top former athletes and sports personalities in the industry.
Ohio, it's my home state.
Obviously, I'm a diehard Cleveland sports fan.
Watch what you want, where you want, when you want. Welcome to Big Play.
Make sure you tune in.
I love you, Cleveland.
All right, welcome back in to the Bobby Carpenter Show, and we've got our headlines here. And Schlegs, they call Ohio State wide receiver U. Ohio State likes to claim it's wide receiver U, the real wide receiver U. And the question is, it was by College Football Blitz. They had an actual vote, Schlegs. They did a poll. I don't think it was scientific, but if you want to see the big reveal and see where everything is, well, it is Ohio State. And I don't know if there should be any surprises you see in the comments over there. I mean, LSU is the other argument. They've got OBJ, Jamar, Jefferson, Neighbors, Thomas Jr., 5 in the last 10. OSU's got McLaurin, Michael Thomas, who's thrown a little lately, Curtis Samuel, Garrett Wilson, Olave, Jackson Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr. They've got 7 in the last 10 and 5 since 2022. And some other 2 and 3 wide receivers as well. I mean, Hartline has done a great job with this. Matt Patricia, I was talking to him today, and he's like, the receivers you guys have. He's like, this looks ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it would be a nice NFL room in most cases. And I think he's second. He's like, they're all so big. I'm like, and they're fast. Wait till you see him in spring ball.
This is where it's a little subjective from, is it the guys when they were in college to the NFL? The NFL is all about fits. The NFL is not for long. And so where do guys go? Do you predicate wide receiver you or linebacker you or D-line you predicate upon what the guy does in the league or what the guy did at Ohio at their university that then got drafted? You know what I'm saying, Bob? So you got to kind of take them both in there and weigh them out, but just the fact of the run of, Mike Thomas and Terry and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and Bam and Bam and Bam and Bam and just what's keeping coming out every single year. Like, it's a no-brainer to me. Though being number 2 is not a bad thing, but there is no argument as far as wide receiver play at Ohio State.
Yeah, it's been absolutely tremendous, and Hartline's done a great job. And Zach Smith recruited really well before that.
He did, man.
He's kind of grown this thing over the last 5 years and in last 10 years, 10, 12 years, really. And so like, even when we were there, I mean, I played with Mike Jenkins. We played.
We had Santonio Holmes, man. Mike Jenkins.
Our senior year, I mean, my sophomore, over my 3 years, I played with 4 first-round receivers. Mike Jenkins, and then our senior year, you had Santonio, you had Ted Ginn, and you had Anthony Gonzalez, not to mention Brian Hartline and Brian Rubisky were both on those teams. Who Rubisky went in the second round. Hart went a little later, but Hart had a really good 8-year career, where 2 years he averaged 75 catches and over 1,000 yards. So like we've always been cranking out big time wideouts, and it's always been great to see that. So pretty excited for all that. I know they put up these lists. It's list season, Schlegel. We talk about that. We talk a little bit about the combine and all the good stuff. Now we're going to get a chance to do our favorite thing where we talk a little tailgate talk, where we get to answer some of your questions, talk about some of your comments that were made right here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. We got Tailgate Talk brought to you by Real Truck coming up next.
We know trucks. We live trucks. We love trucks. For everyone who owns one and everyone who should, we're the leading truck accessory brand in the U.S. with top-selling upgrades for your truck with guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures. Bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
All right, so I got a comment to you coming from yesterday's show with Lathan from C. Porter. He said, I think I watched every game this postseason 100 times over already. Ransomware, which I love the nickname, was next level. Can't wait to watch him on Sundays. He was sticking and putting a hurting all over ball carrying foes. My favorite was watching him stick up for his guys and chirping back at the Oregon sidelines when we came up with another huge stop, getting the ball back for our offense in Pasadena. Ransomware in downs was a special unit together.
No doubt. I mean, one of the best. And then you throw Jordan in there and how they utilized him. I mean, his versatility. But guys, we had a great one in ourselves, right? We had Nasty Nate Sally. We had Dante Whitner-Hittner. You had B. Mitch back there. Kind of like a lot of guys that could do a lot of different things that gives you versatility in the defense that you call, along with you, Bob, and what we did up front. But Lathan, 1, great Buckeye. 2, I think he's going to have a great NFL career because he's one of those guys that will be there for a long time because he has a high GSF. And you guys heard what he's going to say to the coaches. Like, he's all about the team. And in this day and age, they want guys like that. And it will never depart from Lathan Ransom. He loves playing the game of football. He loves the team. And he's going to do everything he can to win. Those are the type of guys that you want on your roster. Yeah, I mean, Lathan Ransom is a coach's dream. Yep. He's incredibly smart. He's physical. He's a great tackler. He's tough. He's a good teammate. He's smart, understanding everything. He's a good communicator. And so he's by far one of the most mature guys. Now, he's played 5 years in college football, and so that helps. And he'll sit there and tell you, I know a guy like Denzel Burke would tell you, he's much more mature today than he ever was, 3-4 years ago. And that's part of the process. And that's why, it's not the worst thing in the world to stay in college a little longer. I know everybody's like, get to the NFL. Now that you're getting paid, dude, you can stay and have success and mature and get to a better spot, where you're at as a human being, and just even outside of your playing maturity, your maturity as a human being. So that's a big piece of it ultimately as well. And excited to see that. I mean, at Lathan, we love talking with him, and he wants to get in the media when he's done. And so I told him, dude, as we continue to do this, we pull you in and just get your opinion on a lot of different things.
He's such a smart guy, and he's one of our favorites as well. All right, that's it for our Tailgate Talk, brought to you by Real Truck. And listen, if you're trying to outfit your truck, Jeep, or Bronco, go to our friends at realtruck.com. They've got all the accessories you need for the interior, the exterior, whatever it is. They've got it all. They do such a great job with everything there. You type in right there at the search bar the type of vehicle you have, the make, the model, what you're looking for, and boom, they get you stuff that fits exactly to your specs. Spend $100, they ship it right to you. And it's starting to get warm outside, so if you want to bring your truck, Jeep, Bronco to life on the inside, on the outside, whatever it is, make sure you head to realtruck.com. Spend $100, you get free shipping. That's what they're all about. Parting shots with Schlegs up next.
We know trucks. We live trucks. We love trucks. For everyone who owns one and everyone who should, we're the leading truck accessory brand in the U.S. with top-selling upgrades for your truck with guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures. Bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
Hey, parting thoughts. Hey, there's always a way. Just so you guys know, there's always a way. I just got done training the Columbus Fury. I was a little bit late. And within the workout, and this is what we tell people all the time, like, you got to be able to handle a lot of different situations. I wish everybody had an opportunity to experience a collegiate and professional weight room when some people are doing really good. Some people play a lot. Some people don't play as much. Some people have other issues that they got because you've already played 12, 13 games, right, in volleyball. And now they're going on the road, et cetera, et cetera. But there's always a way. But you got to have a plan, right? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's what it is. Had a great day today. Just remember that little side nugget.
Buckeye Cruise coming up tomorrow. Excited to be a part of it. We'll try to get some shows here. I'll let you know the schedule here coming up soon as we plan this out. Until next time, we'll see you again on the Bobby Carpenter Show.